Welcome to this deep dive. We're looking at a topic that, well, it's been everywhere lately, the ketogenic diet. Our mission today, really digging into the material you've shared, is to unpack it. What is it? How does it work in your body? What can you actually eat? And what does the science say about the upsides and downsides? Okay, so let's just dive right in. Based on these sources, what's the keto diet at its absolute core? It seems like it all comes down to the macros, right? The ratios.
That's exactly it. Yeah, the material really stresses this. It's defined by a very specific macronutrient split.
Hmm.
Really high fat, moderate protein, and critically super low carbohydrate intake. The standard version, the one most studied, works out to roughly 75% fat, maybe 20% protein, and only about 5% carbs. That tiny carb percentage is the absolute key.
And the point isn't just, cutting carbs randomly. It's about forcing a specific change in how your body gets energy.
Precisely. The whole goal is to get your body into a state called ketosis. Basically, when you starve the body of its usual go-to fuel that's glucose from carbs, it has to switch gears. It becomes really good at burning fat for energy instead. And your liver starts converting that fat into these molecules called ketones.
Ketones, so fat, or rather these ketones, they become the main fuel source, even for the brain, which needs a lot of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Ketones work as an alternative fuel. The brain uses them, muscles use them. It's quite a fascinating metabolic shift, actually.
Okay, and this is really important. I think we need to be clear that this nutritional ketosis we're talking about is totally different from something else that sounds similar but is actually dangerous.
Oh, fundamental distinction, yes. The sources were very clear on this. Nutritional ketosis is a controlled physiological state you achieve through the diet. Ketoacidosis, on the other hand, which the material also mentions, that's a serious medical emergency. You usually see it in uncontrolled type 1 diabetes. Ketone levels in blood sugar get dangerously high. They're absolutely not the same thing.
Got it. Okay, so shifting gears a bit, how long does it typically take someone to actually get into this state of nutritional ketosis if they're sticking to the standard rules?
According to the sources, generally it's somewhere between 2 to 4 days. If you're strict with those macro ratios, it happens relatively quickly.
And are there signs? Like, how would you know you're entering ketosis?
Yeah, there are some common indicators people report. Often a change in breath, sometimes described as kind of fruity or metallic. Also feeling fuller, maybe more thirsty than usual. And then there's that initial phase. A lot of people experience the keto flu.
Ah, yes, the famous keto flu. What did the material say about that? It's not like actual influenza, is it?
No, not a virus at all. It's basically your body adapting. When your carb stores run low, you tend to lose water and important electrolytes, think sodium, potassium, magnesium. This fluid and mineral shifts can cause symptoms, fatigue, maybe a headache, some brain fog, muscle cramps, even a bit of nausea sometimes. It's usually temporary, maybe a few days, could be up to a week. But staying hydrated and making sure you get enough electrolytes is key to managing it.
Okay, makes sense. So practically speaking then, what are you actually eating on keto? What's in and what's definitely out?
Well, the core is healthy fats and moderate protein. So the sources point to things like fatty cuts of meat, fish like salmon is great, eggs, lots of olive oil, avocado, that's a big one, cheese, cream. For veggies, you stick to the really low-carb ones. Leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, stuff like that. Berries are pretty much the only fruit allowed, and even then, only in really small amounts.
Because the no-will list sounds like it would be pretty long.
It is, especially for carbs. Greens are out, so no wheat, rice, corn, all sugars, obviously soda, candy, honey, juice, all that. Most other fruits are too high in carbs, too. Bananas, grapes, mangoes, starchy vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes, also legumes like beans and lentils. And you really have to watch out for hidden carbs in processed foods, sauces. Oh, and alcohol can easily knock you out of ketosis, so it's usually limited or avoided.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting. What are the potential benefits people talk about? What did the material highlight?
Well, the most common one you hear about is weight loss. That high fat and protein is very filling. And ketones themselves seem to have an appetite-suppressing effect, so people often just naturally eat fewer calories. But beyond weight, the sources also really emphasize the potential for better blood sugar control. Especially for folks with type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance, it can significantly improve glucose levels, A1C too.
That does sound impactful. And you mentioned earlier it actually started out for a medical reason.
Yeah, it's a fascinating history, actually. It was first used 100 years ago to treat epilepsy that wasn't responding to medication, particularly in kids. And it's still used for that. There's also ongoing research looking into its potential role for other conditions, maybe supporting treatment for certain cancers or neurological issues like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, but that evidence is still developing. Oh, and focusing on healthy fats can improve some cholesterol markers like raising the good HDL, lowering triglycerides, though the effect on LDL, the bad cholesterol, that can vary quite a bit between individuals.
Okay, so powerful potential there. But what about the downsides beyond that initial keto flu hurdle?
Well, apart from potential digestive things like constipation or maybe diarrhea for some, because it's so restrictive, there is a risk of missing out on certain nutrients if it's not planned really carefully. That's why getting variety within the allowed foods is important. Sometimes supplements might even be considered. And as I mentioned, keeping an eye on cholesterol levels is probably wise.
And are there people who definitely should not do this diet, or only with extreme caution?
Yes, this is crucial, and the sources were very clear here. It's definitely not for everyone. People with type 1 diabetes, for example, have that high risk of ketoacidosis we talked about. They need expert medical management. Also, individuals with advanced kidney or liver problems, women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, people with a history of eating disorders or certain heart conditions. They should generally avoid it or only proceed under very close medical supervision.
So, wrapping things up, it sounds like the keto diet is this powerful metabolic tool. It can really shift how your body works with some potentially significant benefits, especially around weight and blood sugar, and it even has these deep therapeutic roots.
Absolutely. It induces a pretty profound metabolic change, no doubt, and it can
Yeah.
be very effective for certain goals. But it demands real commitment, strict adherence, and it isn't without risks or side effects. That transition can be tough, and the long-term restrictions are significant.
And if you had to boil it down to one absolute takeaway from all this material,
I think the single most critical point, the non-negotiable, is that this diet really should only be undertaken with guidance and strict supervision from a qualified healthcare professional, a doctor, maybe a registered dietitian who actually has experience with keto. They're the ones who can assess if it's genuinely right for you, help you plan it safely to avoid deficiencies, adjust any medications you might be on, and monitor your health. It's presented more like a medical nutrition therapy, not just a casual diet fad.
that really casts it in a different light than how many people seem to approach it these days, which just leave you wondering, doesn't it? Given how seriously the sources treat it, how it started as this supervised medical therapy, why has it become such a popular, often self-directed trend, mainly for weight loss? Kind of disconnects from that crucial oversight the sources emphasize. Definitely something to think about.
Until next time.